Let's talk big, beautiful bill. It's a bill that is beautiful. It's very big. People are saying probably the biggest bill. And we're going to break down some of this. First of all, I know that there's a little bit of trouble in paradise, perhaps, between the departed head of Doge, departed from government service, head of Doge, Elon Musk. Somebody who is, I think, an incredibly talented manager and visionary in business. That's obvious. I think everyone knows that. But he has left, and he was frustrated, quite a bit frustrated with the bill and some of what it does and does not do. Speaker Johnson on the House side yesterday, this is cut 5, in his very polite and affable way, disagrees with Elon's assessment. Play 5.
Let me say this. It's very disappointing, okay? I've come to consider Elon a good friend. He's obviously a very intelligent person, and he's done a lot of great work. With all due respect, my friend Elon is terribly wrong about the one big, beautiful bill.
He says Elon is terribly wrong about it. Okay. I have a hard time with Elon being terribly wrong about it. I think there could be a difference of opinion on it. I think, though, it's asking a lot to expect us to think that Elon doesn't understand what's going where in the spreadsheet, right? I'm not sure that I can get there. I don't think that that's going to happen. Then you also have our friends like Senator Ron Johnson, who comes in and hangs out with us on the program pretty regularly, tells us what's going on over on the Senate side. Here he is talking about Elon's position on this. Play cut 9.
Does what Elon said give you additional kind of help in your quest on this?
Yeah, it certainly bolsters our case. He was in the inside. He showed us with President Trump how to do this, contract by contract, line by line. I mean, the context is all about $22 trillion in expected deficit. And by the way, that counts about $4 trillion of tax increase, which I don't want to incur. But if we don't incur that, you got to make up for about $4 trillion in revenue. How do you do that? You actually look at the numbers, take the personalities out of it, take the invective out of it, take the insults out of it, look at the cold, hard facts. If you do that, you get depressed really fast, and hopefully it'll cause all of us to act.
Okay. So there you have Senator Johnson. We had him call in, so he made his case to all of you about what needs to happen here. But this is a tough one because you have very, very smart people on different sides of an issue who also want the same things for the country, right? They're working toward the same end. The challenge you have often with Democrats is that they'll say things like, border security is a perfect example. It's hard to debate them because they'll say, I want a secure border too, and I think here's how we get there. But they're lying. They don't want a secure border. They just don't want to admit that because then they would lose power. In this case, you're talking about Republicans who want a booming economy and want fiscal sanity. The question is, how do we get there? Or what is necessary now for us to get there? And this is why there's this back and forth that's underway, and there are smart people on both sides of this issue. There are people who are making a case that is intelligible to me in both ways. Stephen Miller, for example, is out there saying, "Look, this with reconciliation, there is no way you can change the mandatory spending that would be." Necessary based on the kind of numbers that Elon and others want to see cuts. You cannot change the mandatory spending under the reconciliation process. So this now goes to Senate procedure. You would need 60 votes to do what it seems they think Elon and others on his side of this issue would want to be done. Now, maybe Elon sees this differently, or clearly he sees it somewhat differently. I don't know if it's that he views the Senate procedure as self-inflicted and therefore unnecessary. That's one version of this, right? Nothing in the Constitution says you need 60 votes to do anything worthwhile in the Senate. But we have this filibuster, and we have these self-imposed mechanisms that slow down some of the changes and the legislative processes from having such a sweeping scope. Now, Caitlyn Collins over at the White House decided that she was going to tangle with Caroline Leavitt on this issue because what do Democrats love? They love when Republicans are at odds on something because it allows them to just engage in, they want to just encourage the circular firing squad as much as they can. I want you to hear how White House Press Secretary Leavitt handled this from Caitlyn Collins. This is cut 4. Play it.
On the big, beautiful bill, you said recently that it is, quote, blatantly wrong to say that it adds to the deficit. You essentially said that an estimate from the Congressional Budget Office and other scorekeepers you believe are wrong. But Republicans like Ron Johnson and Rand Paul disagree. They are saying that it will add to the deficit. That is their concern. Is the White House's position that those 2 Republican senators are, quote, blatantly wrong?
It is. Those senators, it's not news that they disagree with this president on policy, and the president has vocally called them out for it and for their not having their facts together. I would add the Congressional Budget Office has been historically wrong. In fact, they predicted the Trump tax cuts from the president's first term in 2017. Their prediction was wrong by $500 billion. Those tax cuts had nearly $500 billion more of revenue than the Congressional Budget Office scored. And I would also point out, I don't think many people know this, there hasn't been a single staffer in the entire Congressional Budget Office that has contributed to a Republican since the year 2000. But guess what? There have been many staffers within the Congressional Budget Office who have contributed to Democrat candidates and politicians every single cycle since.
Sounds like the CBO is politicized trash. That's what it sounds like to me. I haven't spent much time over there. I haven't spent any time over there. I don't know. But I do know that results speak loudly. And if the results are that they keep being wrong and keep being right, it's just like we see with the media. If you're wrong over and over again, but you're always consistently wrong in a way that helps one side politically and harms the other side politically, you're not wrong by accident. You're not wrong, and it's just the way it is. Something else is guiding that decision-making process. And perhaps with the Congressional Budget Office. Certainly this is true with the economists. I always hate that when they love to do this, CNN or ABC News or whatever. Like, well, economists say, what does that mean? That's like saying human beings who wear T-shirts say. What? Which economists? Who? Now I sound like, what was it? Not Scaramucci. The other guy, Cohen, who was Trump's lawyer. Remember with the polls? Polls? Which polls? Whose polls? Your polls? Polls? Whose polls? When he was on CNN, that was a pretty epic CNN clip there. But yes, in fact, it is the case that they pretend that there is so much more clarity on these issues. Yeah, producer Alex says they do the same thing with climate science. It's the same thing. Scientists say. That is always just a version of we are pushing something as a news organization and found people who have some professional pedigree that we want to leverage who agree with us. That's all that means. Because you can always find an economist to say this or an economist to say that. And I don't mean to be mean. I'm sure some of you have economics degrees. And at some level, microeconomics, supply and demand, there are things that are useful and true about economics. But if economics was a science the way that, physics is scientific or that astronomy is rooted in science and numbers, you would be able to say, well, I know what the economy is going to do. Or you wouldn't be wrong all the time, which economists tend to be. Because there's too many factors and too many things going on for them to be predictive. They can give you a generalized snapshot of what could happen and why, but they tend not to be right. And anyway, this is yet another example of that. So part of this is I think they don't account for even just the revenue windfall that will come from the Trump tariffs. And Scott Besson, who is a serious guy who understands how the economy works, was just saying on television a couple of days ago, he's a Treasury Secretary, that China, as a producer, is going to have to eat a major portion of the cost of the tariffs. That's not something you're hearing from any. We're always told, oh my gosh, the price of eggs. Well, they don't cry about that anymore because the price of eggs is down 60% from its high. So that's not going to work as a talking point. So what are they going to freak out about now? all the stuff you're buying from China or all the stuff with the tariffs. Trump is in an ongoing negotiation on all of this. The markets, I think, have stabilized because they have figured that out. And I think what we're going to see is that if this bill is passed, it will be even better for the economy, generate more revenue, and put us on a better financial footing than some of the advocates for it who aren't deeply involved in it would currently think, or rather some of the advocates for Trumpism more broadly would think. And that is my hope, and that is honestly my belief as well. The notion that we would be able to cut, that we would pay down, let's say, $1 trillion or $2 trillion of the national debt this year, we as a country, we as Republicans just don't, a majority of us just don't want to do it. It's not there. We would lose to Democrats who are insane, who are doing crazy things, who are harmful to the economy. They would be in power. They will crush us in the midterms. That is a political reality. Now, people can say the hour is so late that we have to do that. We have to just run up against that buzzsaw and see what happens. But there is no one who knows politics in America that I am aware of at all who thinks that we could cut $1 trillion or $2 trillion now this year from the debt. I'm not even just talking about the deficit, the debt, and that would not result in a huge win for Democrats and maybe the resurrection of the Democrat Party as an opposition worthy of the name, which it certainly is not right now. So those are the big questions. Those are the big problems as I see them. But I do think that this is going to be a bill that eventually people will look back on and say, wow, that actually did a lot of really good things for the economy. The fact that it is going to fully fund the border wall and border security measures alone gets me really excited. This is it. Trump will have the purse in place to do all of the things that he promised to do on the border. The money is there. The authorization is there if this bill goes through. That's really meaningful. Maybe you could say it this way. If we fix the illegal alien crisis first, it's going to be easier to fix the debt later because it shows we can tackle the big things. We're a serious country. We believe in sovereignty. There is an argument to be made there. And this bill absolutely funds the wall. It funds the all of the border measures and interior enforcement measures that we need. So very, very important stuff. Israel was forced to defend itself again yesterday after an incoming missile attack. Unfortunately, this is not new for Israeli citizens. They've been consistently under attack of one kind or another. It's a time when Israel needs friendship and support, and that's where the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, or IFCJ, comes in. They're building bomb shelters to protect school children from rocket attacks. They're fortifying emergency vehicles and providing flak jackets and other resources, and they're feeding elderly Holocaust survivors who have no one else. When you give a gift of $45 to the IFCJ to help provide food, shelter, and more for those in desperate need, you're putting faith into action right where it's needed most. Call 888-488-IFCJ or visit ifcj.org to bless Israel today. Again, that's ifcj.org or call 888-488-IFCJ.